Hey everybody, this is Mike at AirGunMods.com. Today I'm going to show you guys how to install the new extra long Picatinny breech. Our original length breech is a very popular item that we sell. Mounts on top of the 2240, 1377, 1322 guns. It gives you plenty of rail to mount a dot sight or a scope. Well, we went a little bit further with it this time. And we made almost a full-length breech that covers almost all of the barrel. It does leave enough barrel to allow you to put a TKO moderator on the end of the barrel. I'm going to show you the installation. The first thing now I want to talk about is the port installation. So, it's pretty standard a breech installation to drop your barrel in, line the port up, get it nice and lined up, snug down these two barrel securing screws. We'll just get them just a little bit snug for this demonstration. And then what we recommend, and we've always done this in our tunes, is we recommend then gluing the port, the small transfer port, into the barrel. We put a small fillet of glue and we let that dry, or cure anyway, and that creates a gasket, because if you don't do that, you have metal on metal and it does not create a really good seal. I have another video on how to do that procedure. I think it shows it doing it on a steel breech, but it's the same for these two. For this installation of the long breech, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to show you an alternate method, but it's really something that we do recommend, is to put a small fillet of glue around the long end of the transfer port, drop it in, scrape any excess glue out, and let it cure for 5-10 minutes. Something else we do when we do a full tune on guns is we take about 1/1000 off of the long end of the port. And I don't know if the camera's picking that up, but this is one where we've shortened the port. And what it does is it puts less stress on the breech, because it's not, since it's metal on metal, the breech really, with the small breech screw, really doesn't have enough torque to really clamp that down. So we take about 1/1000 off, and you could do it with a file. You could hold it in a pair of hemostats or small pliers and file it a little bit. You don't want to file too much. And if you do that, you definitely want to glue it into the breech. But anyway, for today's installation, I'm not going to show that glue in. I will put a link to our glue in video on how that's done. All right, hey, so the first thing we'll do is we'll get the 2240 ready. This is a pretty stock 2240. It's got one of our triggers in it, and I think it's an end cap off of a Discovery rifle. But so the first step is to remove that front sight, and I had loosened it a bit anyway. You might have to tap it off or really work it off. Front sight comes off. We'll set that aside. The next step is to remove the barrel band, and that's a 5/64 Allen key. I use the dynamite tools because they're handy for quick work. So I'm just going to loosen that a bit, pull that barrel band off. Now with the factory breech on this gun, you notice the barrel's wobbling around because there are no set screws to hold it in. So the next thing we'll do, and by the way, this gun is ungassed, unloaded. Next thing is we'll take the rear breech screw out, just a regular slotted screwdriver, and we'll unscrew that. Once that's loosened up, we're going to need the screw, but we don't need the sight anymore. So keep the screw close by. And the next thing is we'll use a number 2 square bit to remove the rear grip screw. You can use a regular screwdriver, but it's kind of a weird angle to get into it. Whereas the square bit, it's much easier to line it up. It'll stay in there. We'll remove that. And I'm putting tension on that end cap because it is under spring pressure. The screw will pop out. Out comes the end cap and the spring. Next thing you'll do now is you'll pull the bolt back to reveal the forward breech screw. And that key size is a .050 Allen key. I again use the dynamite tools. Make sure that the tool is bottomed out so you're not going to strip that tiny hex screw. And we'll pull that out. And I usually try to get it to a point where the screw stays on the tool because it just makes it easier, no more fumbling around. So I'm going to set that carefully over to the side. And then you carefully want to lift your barrel breech assembly out, and that reveals the port. And I'm going to just set the port there for now to the side. We'll pull the barrel out, and well, now we'll remove the bolt from the factory breech. You just hold it upside down in effect and move the bolt to the very back of the breech and lift up, and that will release the insert. You can take your bolt out. You can set the breech aside. So basically, the breech is now, the AirGunMods extended breech is now ready to be installed. First thing we'll do is we'll remove the insert on the AirGunMods breech, drop the bolt handle in, the bolt, and put it about in the middle of its travel, and then drop our insert from the nose first in, and then it'll just snap down. And you might check the function to make sure it's functioning smoothly. Next is we will insert the barrel, the correct end, with the breech or with the porthole straight up and down. We'll drop it in. Now here's where it's a little bit tricky is you need to line that port up. I don't know if you can see that in the camera, but side to side and back and forth. We machine this so that there's just a tiny gap. So to truly center it, you might have to pull the barrel out maybe 1/1000 to 1/1000 and a half. Once you get it centered up, so that looks good and centered. There, I got it pretty good centered now. Gently turn the breech over and gently tighten the two barrel attachment set screws at the top of the Picatinny rail. And you're just going to lightly tighten it, and then you're going to check that port alignment again. Turn it back over and check, make sure it looks aligned. You might even take your port and drop it in to make sure that it drops in square and smoothly. And that's setting just right. Now again, we do recommend, if you're doing a full tune on it, to take a little bit off of the long end of the port. And what that does is that sets the port deeper into the breech. And as long as you glue it in, you'll be okay. And that takes stress off of the breech when you tighten down the small forward breech screw. So, but in this demonstration of installation, I'm going to do it a different way. There's also a third attachment screw right about in the middle of the Picatinny rail. We'll just snug that till it just touches. We'll give these a couple of more little tweaks. They don't need to be real tight. And then you want to check the lockup. You want to feel so that the O-ring is catching. So right there, and you can feel the O-ring squishing. So that's the lockup you want. So it isn't going to leak air when you're shooting the gun. All right, so that's prepared and ready to install on top of the gun. So for this demonstration, instead of gluing the port in, we're simply going to place the port back onto the O-ring gasket on top of the air tube. You're going to hold the gun vertical, or you can mount it in a vise if you want. And you want to pull the trigger and move the hammer forward. Not quite to the very end of its travel. And you want to close the bolt. The bolt's closed. The hammer is toward the front of its travel. Now here's where it gets a little tricky, and it takes a little bit of finesse, is the breech is designed with a small cutout so that you can approach it with an angle. And as you slide it in, that angle gets shallower and more shallow. And once you get to a point where it gets to about there, you'll be able to feel it drop in. And it'll drop in about when the back of the breech is just past the air tube. And you feel the whole assembly just drop together. So that's now everything's in alignment now. The holes, the breech screw, that's all in alignment. So I'm kind of clamping it with my hand. Now I'm going to open the bolt. That gives us access to the small forward breech screw. We'll just drop it in, and it should be just perfectly lined up. And it should just go right in. And we're not going to tighten that down very much. We're going to tighten this assembly down in kind of stages. So I'm just tweaking it a little bit, getting it a little snug. And it's on it pretty firmly now. Now we're going to make sure the bolt's closed. You want to pull the trigger, and the hammer will drop. And that gives you more, it takes the tension off the spring. So when you assemble the rear end of the end cap, it doesn't have that much spring tension. And you use your hand, and you're going to line that mounting hole up with the hole on top of the breech, the rear breech screw hole. Drop your long breech screw in. Use a regular screwdriver, and you're just going to tighten it just gently for now. So we're just there. It just got snug. Now we're going to install the lower grip frame screw. Again, you want to put a little bit of pressure on the end cap, and that should take right in. Everything should line right up. And I'm going to tighten this bottom one pretty tight to its final torque value. I'm going to open the breech up, and now it's operating. You can tell that the hammer's staying back, and it's going forward when you pull the trigger. Pull that back. Everything's under tension, the hammer and the hammer spring. And now we're going to come in and get your tool, be sure it's bottomed out, and we're just going to give it a tweak. And we'll come back, do the rear. That one's pretty tight already. I'm going to do it one more time here, and just, that's pretty solid there. So now this gun now, the installation is basically finished. You can, I mean, it's just ready to shoot. You can mount your optics out front. You could put a scope on it. You could straddle the scope. You can put a red dot on the back end of it. There's lots of options for your sight mounting. It leaves enough barrel that you can put either a TKO or an AirGunMods moderator on it. Should slide right on. This particular one is a two-piece where the front end unscrews, so you mount the adapter in effect first, and then you can screw different size and different diameter moderators onto it. But that's pretty much the installation. The action on these operates really smoothly with the 3D printing material we use. It's got a kind of a built-in lubricating property, so you don't need to use any oil on it. And so that is the installation of the full-length breech we came up with. If y'all have any questions or concerns or any more ideas for new products, be sure to get a hold of us at airgunmods.com or at tko22.com. And we always invite airgun guys to give us a call. We like to chat airguns. We get a lot of good ideas from guys that call in. And if we can help you out with any of your Crosman airgun needs for modifications on the 2240, the 13 XX series guns. We don't have a long Picatinny breech yet for the 1322. We're still developing that. But this one's ready to go, and we'll get it up on the website soon. So thanks for watching the video, and you all take care. Bye-bye.